Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. As I said, my name is Karen Kitchens, and I am the Intellectual Property Librarian here at the Wyoming State Library. The reason behind this webinar were several questions that I had received from Wyoming librarians regarding fair use. I'm not a copyright expert, but hopefully I can point you to some expert and useful resources available both online and in print. A list of these resource links will be sent to you via handout and available after the webinar when we send you the link to the archived webinar itself. And also at the end of this, I'll take any questions that you might have. So, okay, let's go ahead and start. As I said, I am a librarian. I am not an attorney, so this cannot be taken as any sort of legal advice. This is for informational purposes only. Copyright is a form of protection grounded in the U.S. Constitution and granted by law for original works of authorship in a fixed and tangible medium of expression. Copyright balances the rights of authors, publishers, and copyright owners with society's need for the free exchange of ideas, and copyright law is codified in Title 17 of the U.S. Code. So let's take a look at some important moments in copyright history. We'll run through this timeline, and then we'll talk about fair use, and then we'll hit to the resources. In 1886, this was an international agreement covering copyright, particularly in 1976, fair use and the first sale doctrines were codified into the U.S. Code. This timeline was created by the Association of Research Libraries, and it's made available off the web, and I did put a link in my link resources. Continuing on, you'll notice in 1994 was the Conference on Fair Use. Addressing the growth of digital technologies, the Conference on Fair Use was established to bring together copyright owner and user interest groups to negotiate new guidelines for fair use of electronic media in education and libraries. In 2002, we have the TEACH Act, which applies to copyright law to distance learning and protects the use of copyrighted works in distance learning courses, so instructors can use material beyond what the fair use guidelines that we'll talk about would normally permit to create virtual classrooms with resources comparable to those of an on-site setting. So what does copyright do for an owner? Well, it grants the owner or creator the right to reproduce, prepare derivative works, distribute the copies for sale, perform a work publicly, or display a work publicly for a prescribed amount of time, and that will vary. What is actually protected by copyright? Here's a list of some examples that would be protected by copyright. This is merely a list of possible works covered by copyright law. The definition of what is protected by copyright is not a list of works, as I have here. These are just examples. But it is a criteria in which works must fit to be considered under copyright protection. First off, it must be original, which implies some degree of creativity. Although copyright protection can apply to a new work that is built on an existing work, but the protection will only apply to the added creativity, and it must be in a fixed format somehow. As you can see, copyright is enforced at the moment the work is put in a fixed format, and the copyright symbol does not need to be attached to it in order for it to be copyrighted. What is not protected? Well, here's a list of some things that are not protected. Facts, for example, a book about rare coins itself is protected, but the stated market value of each coin within that book, which are facts, are not. Looking down, you can see works prepared by the federal government are not protected by copyright. However, they may be original and fixed, but still not copyrightable. Projects written by non-governmental officials with federal funding are eligible for copyright. And those works that are in what's called the public domain. As a general rule, most works enter the public domain because of old age. This includes any work published in the U.S. before 1923 or works published before 1964 for which copyrights were not renewed. So how long does a copyright last? Works created after 1978 have copyright protection for the life of the author plus 70 years after his or her death. Works published after 1923 but before 1978 are protected for 95 years from the date of publication. If a work was published between 1923 and 1963, you must check with the U.S. Copyright Office to see whether the copyright was properly renewed. And all works published in the United States before 1923 are in the public domain. So it really does vary, and this copyright term and public domain in the U.S. by Cornell University is an excellent resource, and we'll find some others too that talk about copyright terms that you can access, and that is also in my links that I will send out. Okay, now down to the meat of it, the exceptions and limitations. Public domain means it's no longer under copyright protection, so obviously that's an exception. Fair use, libraries and archives and educational exceptions. Within Title 17 are exceptions and limitations of particular interest to librarians, especially Section 107, 108, and 110. We're going to focus on Section 107, which is fair use. Fair use is an exception to the copyright laws, as we've stated. Unlike public domain, these works are still under copyright protection and not freely available to everyone. The rule recognizes that society can often benefit from unauthorized use of copyrighted materials when the purpose of the use serves the ends of scholarship, education, or an informed public. Congress passed a law authorizing the use of copyrighted material in certain circumstances deemed to be fair, even if the copyright owner doesn't give permission. Fair use gives you educational access to copyrighted works that you wouldn't have otherwise in a for-profit situation. In other words, you can use the copyrighted material for the educational betterment of your students as long as you follow the established guidelines for use. And here are the 4 factors. So how to determine fair use? Within the statute are 4 factors used to consider fair use. 1, the copyright's purpose is to advance learning by providing incentive to creators of new works to make them available to the public. In an educational setting, learning is a primary objective, so uses of works in educational settings are fairer than uses in non-educational settings. Nonprofit educational uses are favored over for-profit. Most fall somewhere in between. If the use potentially affects the sales of the copied material, it is usually not fair. The nature. There are 2 aspects of the nature of the work used, whether it is unpublished or published, and whether it is fictional or factual in nature. Use of an unpublished work can have a negative impact on the rights holder's ability to financially benefit from the work. Works that are fictional have a stronger copyright protection layer. The amount. Small portions are favored over large. And the effect. Must consider the detrimental impact an unauthorized use of a work may have on the market of the work. out-of-print works are more likely to be considered fair use. However, no single factor is determinative, so all 4 factors must be weighed and balanced. As you can see, the statute is rather vague. It's not concrete. There are no hard and fast rules on what constitutes fair use, only general rules and varied court decisions. So lawmakers and judges want fair use to be expansive rather than restrictive. Having said that, we're going to look at some guidelines. These are not in the copyright law. They are strictly guidelines, and these are called the Fair Use Guidelines. In a joint letter to the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee, the representatives of the Ad Hoc Committee of Educational Institutions and Organizations on Copyright Law Revision, and the Authors League of America and the Association of American Publishers created the Fair Use Guidelines. These refer only to copying from books and periodicals and not intended to apply to musical or audiovisual works. The guidelines permit a teacher to make 1 copy of any of the following things listed from a book, periodical, or newspaper. The Fair Use Guidelines also allow multiple copies for teachers if they meet a particular test. Classroom copying cannot be used to replace texts or workbooks used in the classroom. The number of copies cannot exceed more than 1 copy per student, and a notice of copyright must be affixed to each copy that is distributed. And we'll look at each one of these tests for multiple copies. There's a link here for the Copyright Circular 21 from the U.S. Copyright Office, and I will also send you the link that specifically addresses the Fair Use Guidelines and fair use, and it's an excellent resource. So the first test is brevity, meaning how much of it are you going to use. For poetry, less than or equal to 250 words. For prose complete article, if it's less than 2,500 words, an excerpt of less than or equal to 1,000 words, or 10%. For an illustration, you may use 1 chart, graph, diagram, or cartoon or picture per book. And there's the special works like poetry or prose which combine words with illustrations. They can be equal to or less than 2,500 words. Remember, these are guidelines, not copyright law. The second guideline definition would be spontaneity. The idea is to make the copies must come from the teacher and not from the school administrators or another higher authority. And you'll notice it says decision to copy needs to be close to the time of use. So close that it would be unreasonable to expect a timely reply to a request for permission. Cumulative effect. 1 course. So the copying of material for only 1 course in the school in which the copies are made. There should be not more than 1 short poem, article, story, essay, or 2 excerpts may be copied from the same author, or more than 3 from the same collective work or periodical volume during 1 class term. Not more than 9 instances of such multiple copying for 1 course during a class term. And current news selections of other periodicals are exempt. Basically, this is so the copying does not replace purchasing texts or workbooks. Prohibitions. We want to make sure that such replacement or substitution may occur whether copies of various works or excerpts therefrom are accumulated or reproduced and used separately. These include workbooks, exercises, test forms, answer sheets, etc. These are the consumable works. We do not want this to be a substitute for purchasing. Okay, we've looked at fair use guidelines and what might constitute fair use. Now I want to show you some of the resources available to you online, and then I'll show you some print resources that will help with these decisions of fair use. The first one, the U.S. Copyright Office. Obviously the place to start. They have a host, we'll go to here, they have a host of information circulars and flyers and fact sheets. I'm going to scroll down. All of this is on copyright. Very specific titles, pretty much dealing with any question you might have on copyright. Particularly this one on fair use. This is really just the text. It's an excellent resource to start with that explains to you about fair use. So the place to start, U.S. Copyright Office, information circulars and fact sheets. The second place that you might look would be the American Library Association Advocacy and Legislation page on fair use. We'll come back to that one while it's still loading. So we'll move on. Harvard University, the Office of General Counsel has another excellent site. Let's see if this one's loaded yet. Okay, well, that one just does not want to load, so I apologize. We'll keep trying. On this particular site, the Harvard University Office of General Counsel, even though it states for the Harvard community, please don't overlook this informational site. It has an excellent list of what might be considered frequently asked questions regarding copyright and fair use, along with explanations. This is the Harvard Office of the General Counsel. Excellent informational site. Purdue University has a site on fair use. This is an excellent visual representation of the fair use factors. We can look through here. I particularly want to show you, let's go down to, you can see there's nature of the work, the amount, as we said, large amount versus small amount, etc. I want to show you the fair use analysis. And this is a useful tool, kind of a good way for you to see what you might go through, and if you have a particular item that you're not sure about, you can go through and select and see if it favors fair use or favors getting permission. So we might select particular items that will show you, let's say all of my check marks or most of my check marks are here in favors fair use, and maybe I only have one in the creative, or I don't have any in the creative, and now I can be a bit more certain that my copying will be under fair use. And that's the fair use analysis under Purdue University. Columbia University Libraries has another absolutely excellent site on copyright, fair use, and education. And hopefully this one will come up. There it is. This offers a PDF fair use checklist, and it allows for a printable form to keep for your records. So if you really want to feel secure about the decision that you may be making on fair use, you can go down to the fair use checklist. It talks about the benefits of the checklist and then the PDF form of the checklist. And once again, it's similar to the one we just filled out online, but it does show the nature of the work, the amount of the work, favoring fair use or opposing fair use. But it would allow you to fill this out, and then you can also fill in the information and then go ahead and print that out for your records. Additionally, this site has links to information on requesting permission. So for example, let's say that you have decided that you really do need to contact the copyright owner. You might want to come here and look at some information on how do you contact the copyright owner, how to secure permission, what if you reach a dead end. So this is a great resource for if you need to go ahead and request permission. There's also some model permission letters available here, so if you're just not sure where to start, this might be a place to start. And it looks like there we go. Okay, we're going to backtrack. This is the American Library Association site on fair use. This is next to the Copyright Office. I would probably start here looking for information on fair use. They have an excellent site available, including copyright webinar from the actual expert, Carrie Russell, on copyright, complete copyright, and digital delivery in the classroom. And what I really want to show you here is the Fair Use Evaluator. This is a great online tool that can help users understand how to determine if a use of a protected work is fair use. It provides a time-stamped PDF document, again, for your records. So let's take a look at the Fair Use Evaluator. Say we want to go ahead and we want to make a fair use evaluation. Some information about how it works, and we'll continue on. Here you can do the time and date, the time to be used, input your name, your institution, and the publication information. And you go through each one of these factors and describe the purpose, the nature, the amount, and the effect of the work. And once this is complete, of course we didn't fill it out, you will get a fair use, a level of fairness evaluation according to along the timeline chart here. This is another absolutely excellent resource. Again, that's on the American Library Association site. University of Texas system offers a crash course in copyright. So let's look at that. Lots of information on copyright in general, but particularly, I want to scroll down and you can see fair use. More information on fair use, again, reiterating what we've talked about. Quick guides for fair use in context, the first steps, and a link to the Creative Commons if you need to get some licensed work, and then fair use exemptions. And that's the University of Texas system crash course in copyright. You may want to look through their entire crash course in copyright and not just the fair use. Stanford University Libraries has a Copyright and Fair Use Center. And the excellent resource that I found on this, we'll go ahead and look at the NOLO copyright overview. And it's an excellent discussion of what is fair use and what constitutes copyright. And also copyright case summaries. Remember, we stated that the courts determine what is fair use. Absolutely. So you may want to read through some of the copyright case opinions that have occurred and maybe get an idea of what is going on in the copyright and fair use world in the court system. And that's the excuse me, the Stanford University Libraries. They also have copyright FAQs, introduction to the permissions process, website permissions, academic and educational permissions, the public domain, and fair use. And here's the NOLO copyright overview, particularly on fair use. University of Minnesota has an excellent resource called Thinking Through Fair Use, My Analysis. And this gives you another opportunity to complete a record of your fair use process. So from here we can also complete, just as we did on the others, if you prefer this one, we can go through and select the purpose, the nature, and the amount, and then keep our determination on record of how we came to this fair use decision. And from here we can also then select and get a summary, which would then you can print out and keep for your records. And this is the University of Minnesota Fair Use. So it's basically another link to a fair use checklist. Let's get some of the associations. We already did look at the American Library Association. So we want to look at the Association of Research Libraries Code of Best Practices in Fair Use. This is a clear and easy to use statement of fair use and reasonable approaches to fair use development by and for libraries. And from here we can download the PDF. Well, it's going to loop me. Well, we could I'm not sure why it's not downloading, but it is an excellent resource. And it was last updated in January 2012, and this is from the Association of Research Libraries. We'll take a quick look at the American Association of Law Libraries. They have guidelines on fair use of copyrighted works by law libraries. And even though your library may not be a law library, this may have some useful information for your library on fair use. And that's the American Association of Law Libraries, Guidelines on Fair Use of Copyrighted Works. Let's look at the Copyright Advisory Network. Is it protected by copyright? Well, we can look at this really cool online tool called the Copyright Genie, and it can help you find out if a work is covered by the U.S. copyright, calculating its terms of protection and collecting and publishing results as a PDF. And again, you can see a link to our Fair Use Evaluator that we saw at the ALA site and the Copyright Genie, which will tell you if a work is under copyright. So these are some awesome online resources available from the Copyright Advisory Network, part of the ALA. A few more resources online, and then we'll go to some print. The Visual Resource Association has a statement on fair use. The Visual Resource Association is a multiple disciplinary organization dedicated to furthering research and education in the field of image management within the educational, cultural heritage, and commercial environments. Again, another resource that may be of help to you as far as making fair use decisions. And these are really of images for teaching and research. The Center for Media and Social Impact from American University has a code of best practices in fair use for media literacy and education. These may be helpful to you in your decision of fair use, but also if you want to come up with your own code of best practices, you may read through what is out there on fair use. And this gives you some information on fair use in the media world. The Center for Media and Social Impact also has a code of best practices for scholarly research. We can also select here and read through the report. Again, useful for information or if you want to create your own code of best practices. Print resources. Carrie Russell from the American Library Association has a best-selling copyright authority and resource just for librarians, and this offers clear guidance for providing materials to students while carefully observing copyright law. An absolutely excellent resource. Copyright Questions and Answers for Information Professionals by Laura Gasway of Purdue University. This volume is presented in a question and answer format, and the questions are real. They were submitted by librarians, educators, and other information professionals who have attended her copyright law workshops and presentations or submitted them to the author online. And it's a great resource too. I like the question and answer format. A general guide on copyright law for librarians and educators by the American Library Association. Kenneth Cruz has completely revised his classic text to remap the territory with fresh and timely insights into applications of copyright law for librarians, educators, and academics. Copyright for Teachers and Librarians in the 21st Century by Rebecca Butler, and this is a practical copyright handbook designed to help librarians, media specialists, and technology coordinators and teachers stay within the copyright law while making copyrighted print, non-print, and web sources available to students and others. Copyright Catechism 2, author Carol Simpson has fielded and answered inquiries for the Copyright Questions of the Month column for Library Media Connection. The questions and answers of this book are gleaned from the myriad of copyright questions submitted to her by actual educators in the field, addressing the unique copyright issues in schools. An excellent resource. Number 2, the Copyright Clarity. This is a jargon-free guide which clarifies principles for applying copyright law to the 21st century education and discusses what is permissible in the classroom and explores the fair use of digital materials. A quick look at some print resources and online resources available to you to help you with your fair use decision. If you are uncertain, ask permission. So if you've gone through all this and you feel that you need to ask permission, you might want to check out the U.S. Copyright Office Circular number 22, which talks about getting permission from a copyright holder. And that concludes a tour of some resources available to you. Are there any questions? Great. Have a great afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you attending.